Hello everyone, welcome to today's The Hindu Analysis. My name is Sairam. Let us look at the first article of our discussion. The title of this article says GST revenues surpass 1.44 lakh crore. Very important article regarding GS paper 3. This article is relevant to economy subject of our syllabus. So let us discuss this particular article in great detail and from the background. You can understand this particular article when you get to know the concept of GST in great detail. To start with, what I will do is, I will explain the topic of GST, the concept of GST with perfection, and later let's move to the concept that was given in this particular news article. Okay, right. Let's get into the details of this article. So before understanding what was exactly in news, let us try to understand the concept of GST in detail. Look at me carefully here. If you categorize the taxation system in India, we can broadly categorize into two parts. One is direct taxes and second one is indirect taxes. Very important. If I say direct taxes, that simply means the taxes that are directly paid by us to the government, like income tax or property tax, which we pay directly to the government itself. When I say indirect taxes, which are indirectly paid by the people to the government, that means we never directly pay these taxes to the government, but we rather pay this to the manufacturer of a good or service provider so that he will pay this particular amount of tax to the government. That is what the concept of indirect taxes is. Before the introduction of GST regime in 2017, there used to be 15 plus indirect taxes. But what the central government did with the introduction of GST, all these 15 taxes were subsumed into a single comprehensive tax, that is GST. As the name indicates, GST stands for Goods and Services Tax. That means this is an indirect tax that levied on the goods and services that are consumed by people, that are consumed by individuals. That means GST is actually levied on the consumption of an individual. Right? Suppose, let me give you an example. We buy one good, that is soap. Right? So we never pay the amount directly to the government of India for using this particular product, but we rather pay the tax to the manufacturer of this particular soap, so that he will pay the tax to the government. That is the reason why it is simply called as indirect taxes. Let's take another example. If you join an institute for UPSC preparation, that means that institute in which you join, they are offering teaching services to you, right? You never pay the tax amount directly to the government since you are using that company's or that institution's services, but rather what you do is simply pay that amount to that particular institute so that that particular institute will pay that particular amount to the government directly. I hope it is clear till now. So what you need to understand is GST is an indirect tax and GST is a comprehensive tax. Comprehensive tax, why I use this word comprehensive tax? Because the previous 15 types of taxes were subsumed into a single tax. That is the reason why I am calling it as a comprehensive tax. And also, it is also a multi-stage tax. Why I am calling it as a multi-stage tax? Because it is levied on each stage of value addition. Let's take this as an example. Shirt. Manufacturing of a shirt involves different phases, isn't it? Procuring cotton, transforming cotton into a cloth, and with a stitching process, this cloth will be transformed into a shirt, right? It involves different stages, and at each stage, the tax will be levied on the manufacturer. That is the reason why it is called multi-stage tax, and it is also called destination tax. I will be discussing this particular destination tax concept in a few moments. Okay, there is absolutely nothing to worry. So all you need to remember till now is this particular GST, that is Goods and Services Tax, it is an indirect tax, it is a comprehensive tax, it is a multi-stage tax, and it is a destination tax. And the manufacturer never pays this GST directly to the government, but rather he pays to the manufacturer or service provider. So the service provider will pay this particular tax directly to the government. These are some important things that you need to remember regarding GST. Now let us look at what was given in this particular news article. So the article says India recorded its second highest monthly gross GST revenues in June. So from a few days, we are constantly observing that, we are constantly seeing that the collections of GST revenues have been increasing month by month. And in June, so Indian government, it has collected second highest monthly gross GST revolutions at 1.44 lakh crore. And it is basically said that last month's June's revenue collection is actually 56% more than a year earlier, when the second COVID wave had hit economic activity. So in the month of June last year, I hope you all know that our country was suffered with second COVID-19 wave, isn't it? So let us look at the details. Revenues from import of goods rose 55%. So the GST revenues from import of goods, that means whenever our country is importing some goods, those exporters need to pay some GST to the government of India, and these revenues rose to 55% according to this particular article, while domestic transactions and import of services were 56% higher in this particular month. Even the GST revenues collected from the domestic transactions, that means the transactions happened in our country, and import of services from other countries, they also accounts to 56% growth according to this particular article. So the gross GST compensation cess collections hit 11,018 crore, including 1,197 crore on import of goods. So here you need to understand what exactly is GST compensation cess. So let me explain this in a great detail. What exactly is cess? Cess is actually a value added tax to fulfill a predefined purpose. Let's take Swachh Bharat cess as an example. That means the cess is collected from the people to invest those funds on Swachh Bharat only. There will be a predefined purpose associated with cess. And GST compensation cess means this cess will be collected to compensate GST gaps for the states. I already told you, before the introduction of GST's regime, there used to be 15 plus indirect taxes, and these taxes used to be levied by both center and also state. Here, with the introduction of GST, the states were supposed to give up their taxation powers to the center. That is the reason why when there is a gap in revenue growth, then the central government will fill that particular gap by providing compensation to those particular states which witnessed shortfall in revenue collections. I hope it is clear. So for the purpose of GST compensation, the central government will levy particular cess, and this cess will be predominantly levied on sin goods, so-called sin goods. Sin goods means alcohol or tobacco products, etc. I hope it is clear. So even GST compensation cess has seen a significant growth with 11,018 crore according to this particular article. I hope it is clear till now. Now let us look at the reasons for this record GST collections. If you look at the first reason is actually post-COVID economic recovery. Since India achieved almost universal vaccination, majority of manufacturing units started reopening, right? And the economic activity and economic recovery restarted all over the country, isn't it? So the post-COVID economic recovery, it helped in a great way for the improvement of GST collections, GST revenue collections. Let us look at the second reason, that is anti-evasion activities. Prior to 2022, many manufacturers and many services providers used to evade GST, used to escape from paying GST to the government by using different fake methods, different frauds, right? Example, fake bills, etc. But in the recent times, the Ministry of Finance shifted its focus on these evaders and shifted its focus on these evasion activities. So many people came into complaints, GST complaints. Many people are started paying GST, and these anti-evasion activities, they helped immensely in the growth of GST revenues. Now the third reason is increased consumption. We all know that our lives came back to normal after post-COVID economic recovery. Many of manufacturing units and also service providers started reopening their ventures. So that is the reason why people, especially who lost their jobs during COVID-19 time, got their jobs back and they're earning enough income, significant income for their well-being, and they're consuming and they started consuming different products, so that this increased consumption helped a lot in improving GST revenues to our governments. I hope it is clear till now. Let us look at the next slide then. Now the question is, what does it imply? What does this increase in GST revenues imply actually in the reality? The first one is, it implies increased economic activity. Since GST is levied on consumption of individuals, it simply indicates the economic activity restarted in the country. The economic activity is boosting up in the country. And the second important implication is stabilizing trend with the tax collections. We can simply say that the increased GST revenues simply indicate the tax is efficiently being collected by the enforcement agencies or tax collecting agencies, right? And the third one is overcoming the initial problems. So this new trend of increasing GST revenues, it can simply suggest that this indirect tax regime is overcoming the initial problems that it faced in the earlier times, during 2017 and 18. At the wedge of initiation of the GST system and GST regime, the government faced and the Ministry of Finance faced many issues. So what it simply indicates, what the growth of GST revenues simply indicate, they simply indicate that the government is overcoming the initial problems. And the next one is, this would be complemented by e-way bill and improved GST compliance. Many people are coming into the GST regime, many people are paying their taxes timely, and this helped in the increase of GST revenues big time, right? I hope it is clear till now. Let us look at the next slide. So let us look at some important points regarding goods and services tax. As I already explained you, this goods and services tax, it is actually an indirect tax, and it is levied on the consumption of goods and services. Goods and services tax, it is actually levied on the consumption of individual, right? So, and it is a comprehensive tax. Why it is called a comprehensive tax? Because it subsumed earlier 15 plus taxes and introduced a new comprehensive single tax system, and it is a multi-stage tax. We call it as a multi-stage tax because it is levied on each stage of value addition in the product supply chain, right? And it is also called destination-based tax. We can also call it as destination-based tax. Why we call it as destination-based tax? Let me explain with an example. In the GST tax structure, there will be three important components. One is CGST, that is Central GST. Second one is SGST, State GST. Third one is IGST, Integrated GST. The first two, that is CGST and SGST, are actually levied on intrastate transactions. That means if the transaction happens within the state, whereas IGST, it is levied on interstate transactions. That means if the transactions happen between states. Okay, so CGST and SGST. Let me explain you this with an example. Let's say a shirt was manufactured in Bombay and it is actually consumed or purchased in Pune. It is simply an example of intrastate transaction, because both Bombay and Pune were actually in the same state, right? In this case, what will apply? Both the CGST and SGST will be applied on this transaction. So suppose here the product is shirt, right? On apparels, the GST levied will be 12%. Suppose the cost of this shirt is 1,000 rupees, then the purchaser, the consumer, has to pay 12% tax on this particular product. That means the overall cost of this product, this shirt, will be 1120 rupees. So the tax collected in this intrastate transaction, the entire tax collected in this intrastate transaction will be shared equally by the center and state. Within this, 120 rupees which is collected as tax, 60 rupees will go into CGST and 60 rupees will will go into SGST, right? State, that means which state? Here it is Maharashtra state. Very, very important. Now let us take the example of interstate transactions. Let's suppose the shirt was actually manufactured in Bombay, but it is actually consumed or purchased at Hyderabad, which is in Telangana. Now, the tax will be collected will be the same because the tax on apparels is 12%. So, the center collects entire 120 rupees and the center shades half of the amount to the destination state. What is the destination state? Here in this case, it is actually Telangana, right? So, the center collects 120 rupees as tax and it keeps 60 rupees with it, and the rest of the 60 rupees will be shared by the destination state, that is Telangana. I hope it is clear. So, GST is actually called destination based tax. So, the Parliament enacted this goods and services tax on 29th March 2017, and this goods and services tax came into enforcement from 1st July 2017. And this tax will actually be paid by the consumers, that we pay this particular tax, and is remitted to the government by the businesses selling the goods and services. That means though the consumers pay this goods and services tax, but we will not directly pay this tax to the government. Rather, we hand over our tax amount, we pay our tax amount to the manufacturer or service provider in the case of services. Then the service provider or manufacturer will pay that particular amount to the government, right? Very, very, very important. I hope it is clear till now. Let us get to the next slide. So there were actually three components in this GST regime. One is CGST, will be levied by the center itself. Second one is SGST, will be levied by the states. And IGST, it is a tax levied on all interstate supplies of goods and services. I hope it is clear. I explained this concept of CGST, SGST and IGST in the previous slide, isn't it? Next, all these taxes are levied at rates mutually agreed upon by the center and states. Periodically, both center and states will conduct GST Council meeting wherein they conclude the tax slabs and tax rates and other issues related to GST and other concerns related to GST. The GST Council, which is headed by the Union Finance Minister, is the governing body and the key decision making body of GST. All the decisions regarding GST will be taken during the meeting of GST Council, during the GST Council's meeting. And this GST Council's meeting will be headed by Union Finance Minister. And the other members will be the finance ministers of different states. I hope it is clear till now. So this is all about GST and important aspects of GST. And we also discussed the news that appeared on the Hindu today. I hope this article is clear and perfect to you. Now without any further delay, let's get to our second article. So let us look at the second article of our discussion. The title of this particular article says Plastic Ban Violators to Face Penalties, Jail Term. Gopal Rai. Very, very important article regarding GS Paper 2 Government Policies and Interventions and GS Paper 3 Environment and Ecology. So what is in news? Delhi's Environment Minister Gopal Rai on Friday, he said that violating the ban on single-use plastic items in the city, that means in the city of Delhi, will result in a jail term of up to 5 years or a fine of about 1 lakh or both under the Environment Protection Act 1986. You all know that single-use plastic was banned in our country from yesterday, that is July 1st, 2022. And according to the Delhi Environment Minister Gopal Rai, the violators of this ban will attract 5 years of jail term and a fine up to 1 lakh or both. Under what? Under the Environment Protection Act of 1986. So since we understood what is given in this particular news, let us try to understand background of this single-use plastic ban. Let us get into the details of it. So you all know that the central government, especially Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, it has banned the use of single-use plastic. Don't worry, I will explain what exactly are single-use plastic items in a few moments. So the single-use plastic usage was banned from July 1st, that is yesterday, And along with that, the central government, that is Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, they also came up with a list of plastic items that were banned from July 1st. So as per the notification of Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, the manufacturing, the import, stocking, that is storage, distribution, sale and usage of following single-use plastic, they have given some list of single-use plastic items that were banned, including simple polystyrene to expanded polystyrene commodities shall be prohibited with the effect from 1st July 2022. So with this being said, we should understand what exactly are single-use plastics, and we need to move to why these single-use plastics are banned, and third one, what kind of single-use plastic items were banned and how the government is looking to enforce this particular ban. So we need to understand all these aspects in great detail, then we can understand this particular article very comprehensively. Let us look at the details of this single-use plastic ban. First, let us try to answer this question, what exactly is single-use plastic? As the name suggests, the single-use plastic items are those kind of plastic items that are used only once and discarded right away. For example, plastics used in packaging of items and bottles like shampoo bottles, detergent bottles, cosmetics, etc. Polythene bags that we usually used in a daily basis, face masks and coffee cups, cling films and trash bags, food packaging bags, etc. These all come under single-use plastics. As per the Mindero Foundation report, which was released in 2021, single-use plastics account for a 1/3 of all plastics produced globally. For example, if the world produces 100 tons of plastic globally, 1/3 of it, that means 33.3 tons of plastic accounts to single-use plastic, with 98% of the single-use plastic manufactured from fossil fuels. And these fossil fuels are known to release carbon emissions which are very detrimental, which are very harmful for the environment. I hope it is known to you. India features in the top 100 countries of single-use plastic waste generation. So among top 100 countries that release single-use plastic waste, that generate single-use plastic waste, India is one among them. At rank 94, India is at the rank 94, and the top 3 being, one is Singapore, second one is Australia, and third one is Oman. These countries are actually generating a large masses of single-use plastic wastage. India's domestic production of single-use plastic is actually 8 million metric tons annually, and its import of 2.9 million metric tons annually. That means, as a country, we produce single-use plastic of 8 million metric tons every year, and we import the single-use plastic items of 2.9 million metric tons. We can say these are very, very dangerous numbers, right? Let us get into the next slide. And the next question is, why these single-use plastic items are a cause of concern? The first important point of concern, of course, is environmental pollution. So the single-use plastic items also account for the majority of plastic discarded, which is dumped plastic, which is generated as waste. So if we talk about the numbers of this plastic, discarded plastic, the plastic that is generated as waste, the plastic that is thrown out as waste, it is actually 130 million metric tons globally in 2019. So, and the single-use plastic actually accounts for the majority of discarded plastic according to the sources. And all of these discarded plastic, they are burned, they are buried in landfills and are discarded directly into the environment. That is the reason why this particular single-use plastic is posing a threat to the environment and sustainability, right? And second important aspect is greenhouse gas emissions. It is actually an important point of concern because these greenhouse gases are very important elements that accounts to climate change, global warming, etc. Right? So on current trajectory of production, it has been projected that single-use plastic could attract for 5 to 10% of greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. By the year 2050, among all the greenhouse gas emissions, the majority is contributed by the majority will be contributed by these single-use plastic items. So that is the reason why it is a point of concern, right? That is the reason why they should be banned at any cost in each and every country, not only in India. Now let us look at what are the important items being banned by central government, that is Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Central Pollution Control Board CPCB, it has announced a ban on a list of items. Some of them are earbuds, balloon sticks, candy, ice cream sticks, cutlery items that are used for packaging of food, that is including plates, cups, glasses, forks, spoons, knives, trays, sweet boxes, invitation cards, cigarette packs, PVC banners, which are PVC banners which measure under 100 microns. Microns is the measure of width of a particular plastic item. So a PVC banner which is having a width less than 100 microns, it will be banned. So the polystyrene for decoration, this polystyrene which is used for decoration is also been banned by Central Pollution Control Board. And polythene bags, the ministry had already banned polythene bags which are having the width under 75 microns in September 2021 itself, expanding the limit from the earlier 50 macrons. That means according to the earlier guidelines of Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, they only banned those polythene bags or plastic bags which are having the width of less than 50 microns. But now this was expanded to 75 microns. From December 2022, the ban will be extended to polythene bags under 120 micron. See, slowly the government is increasing and expanding the plastic bags which should be banned, right? And even these sachets, shampoo sachets and oil sachets, government also banned these sachets as well. According to the Plastic Waste Management Rules 2016, there is also a complete ban on sachets using plastic material. Those sachets which are manufactured using a plastic material, so they will be banned completely. The sachets which are used for storing, packing, selling gurkha, tobacco, pan masala will be banned completely according to the rules of government. That is according to the rules of Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, according to the Plastic Waste Management Rules 2016. I hope it is clear till now. Let us get into the next slide. Then now let us look at how will the ban be enforced. The first important measure taken by the government is monitoring by CPCB, strict and stringent monitoring by Central Pollution Control Board. This ban will be monitored by the Central Pollution Control Board from the center and even the State Pollution Control Boards, that are SBCBs, and the State Pollution Control Boards, they will update each and every report to the center regularly. And the second measure is stopping the raw materials supply. Very, very important. And the government has issued directions to the national, state and local level industries which are supplying raw materials, these industries which are manufacturing single-use plastic items. So, for example, the center has given direction to all petrochemical industries to not to supply raw materials to the industries who are engaged in these banned items. And the third one is directions to industries. So all the industries which are engaged in the manufacturing of this particular single-use plastic, they were directed to revoke their operation. They were directed to stop their operation. And the fourth important measure was issuing new license. All the existing licenses of these industries who are engaging in the manufacturing of single-use plastics will be ceased to exist from July 1st, 2022. Right, and the government will issue new licenses according to the new guidelines issued by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. And the next one is strict penalty. So those people who violate these guidelines, they will attract imprisonment up to 5 years or a penalty up to 1 lakh or both according to Environment Protection Act of 1986. And the violators can also be asked to pay environmental damage compensation by state pollution control boards. The state pollution control boards of respective states, they may impose this environmental damage compensation as well on those industries who are still engaging in the manufacturing or supply or storage of these particular single-use plastics, or those industries which are violating the guidelines issued by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. I hope it is clear till now, right? So this is all about this particular article. And if you look at the global scenario, Bangladesh became the first country to ban these thin plastic bags in 2002. Way back in 2002 itself, Bangladesh banned the manufacture and storage and the use of this particular thin plastic bags in their country. And even China, it also issued a ban on plastic bags in 2022, and this ban will be implemented on a phase by phase manner. Even the European Union also banned certain single-use plastics for which alternatives are available. So they banned those single-use plastics which can be replaced by other alternatives. I hope it is clear till now. So this is all about this particular article. So I hope you understood this particular article in a comprehensive manner. So without any further delay, let us get into our next article of our discussion. So let us look at the next article of our discussion. The title of this article says, Hong Kong moving from chaos to order. Xi Jinping. Very, very important article regarding GS paper 2, International Relations. So first let us look at what exactly is given in this particular news article, and later let us try to understand the background of this particular topic. Chinese President Xi Jinping on Friday, he visited Hong Kong for the swearing in ceremony of Hong Kong's new leader, and on this occasion he stated that Hong Kong was in a new stage of transition from chaos to order. He alleged that the previous governments pushed Hong Kong into chaos, pushed Hong Kong into disorder, and now the newly formed government has the full capability to guide and transform Hong Kong to a stable state. This is what claimed by the Chinese President Xi Jinping. Now let us address most of your questions related to China and Hong Kong relationship. Most of you might confuse that, is Hong Kong a part of China or China and Hong Kong are separate countries? So I will try to address these kind of questions by explaining the background of China-Hong Kong relations in a comprehensive manner. Let's get into the details now. So the China-Hong Kong relationships. Hong Kong is actually a special administrative region of China, which is very simple to state that Hong Kong is a special administrative region of China. But what exactly the meaning of special administrative region? That we must understand. Hong Kong being the special administrative region of China, it simply means it is a part of China, but it operates with its own set of rules and governance, except for the matters of defense and foreign affairs. So, Hong Kong has a separate political structure, Hong Kong had a separate judicial structure, Hong Kong had separate currency, Hong Kong had its own flag, etc. But the China only intervenes in the matters of defense and foreign affairs. Then you may get a question that on what basis this relationship, that means special administrative region relationship, was determined. The relationship was explicitly mentioned in the Hong Kong's constitution, that is Basic Law. Basic Law is actually the constitution of Hong Kong, and this Basic Law allows Hong Kong to enjoy its own executive, its own legislative, and its own independent judicial powers. Okay, very, very, very important point. Independent judicial powers bearing the matters of defense and foreign affairs. So as far as defense and foreign matters of Hong Kong are concerned, it will be completely dealt by China, the mainland China itself. So according to so-called one country, two systems model, Hong Kong had its own government, it had its own judicial system, independent judicial system, it had its own currency, it will frame its own independent trade relations with other nations, and even Hong Kong had its own flag. Now the question that may arise is, what exactly is this one country, two systems model? So this model simply means Hong Kong is a part of China. Both China and Hong Kong should be called as one country, but there will be two parallel systems that govern the administration in both the regions. So Hong Kong had its own government, Hong Kong had its own judiciary, Hong Kong had its own executive, Hong Kong had its own flag, Hong Kong had its own currency, etc. And China had its own flag, China had its own currency, etc. There will be two systems, but both Hong Kong and China are of the same country. Hong Kong is a part of China. That is what the meaning of one country, two systems model. I hope it is clear till now. Now let us look at what was exactly the basis of this particular model and what exactly is this basic law and when did this basic law, that is Hong Kong's constitution, came into existence. Let us try to answer these type of questions. So if you go back to history, in 1842 there emerged a war between Qing dynasty of China and Britishers. And this war was famously called as Opium War 1, First Opium War. And if we talk about the result of this particular war, Qing dynasty was defeated by the British. The British won in this particular war and the Chinese Qing dynasty was forced to cede Hong Kong to British. So Qing dynasty has leased Hong Kong to the British. And in 1860, there emerged a second war, that is Second Opium War, between Qing rulers and the British. The Qing dynasty rulers, they were forced to part Kowloon Peninsula, which is in the northern part of Hong Kong, to the British. And in 1898, they signed an agreement between Chinese monarchy, that is Qing dynasty, and Britishers. According to this agreement, both Hong Kong and Kowloon Peninsula were given to the British on a lease for a period of 99 years. For a period of 99 years, Britishers can enjoy the assets, the land of Hong Kong and Kowloon Peninsula for their own benefits, for their own interests. So by the time this lease agreement about to culminate in 1980s, China asked to British for the reunification of Hong Kong with mainland China. China pleaded the Britishers to give back Hong Kong to China. In 1997, they signed a Sino-British Joint Declaration, which is an agreement between China and Britishers, and it was signed. After the signing of this particular declaration, Hong Kong was officially handed over to China under one country, two systems rule. But however, you must understand that in the meantime, from 1898 to 1997, many British institutions were set up in Hong Kong and the language of English came to Hong Kong. And with the dominance of British culture, the socio-economic and political structure of Hong Kong was transformed in the meantime. So Hong Kong was habituated to democracy, which was advocated by the West. And the people of Hong Kong started speaking English as their primary language, right? And even the culture of Hong Kong is very near to the Western culture. But however, if you look at the Chinese government, China was more of an authoritative government because they follow communist ideology, right? So the sudden transformation to democracy to communism, democracy to authoritative structure, it will definitely impede the rights of Hong Kong people. That is the reason why Britishers employed this one country, two systems rule. According to this new model of one country, two systems, for the next 50 years, the Hong Kong will be governed by its own system. The Hong Kong will be governed by its own legislature. It will have its own executive. It will have its own judiciary, etc. Right? If you ask me what happens after 50 years, that is anybody's guess. We never know what may happen to Hong Kong because China is becoming more and more powerful these days. Right? Now let's look at the next slide. So since 1997, from 1997, Hong Kong residents have protested many times to protect their basic law freedoms. I already told you the basic law, which is the Constitution of Hong Kong and which is a result of Sino-British Joint Declaration, it allows Hong Kong to enjoy executive, legislative and independent judicial power. But when China is intervening in Hong Kong day-to-day affairs, the people of that country, they protested many number of times since 1997. In 2003, the first major pro-democracy protest took place when the Hong Kong government first tried to enact the national security law. Through this national security law, then pro-Chinese Hong Kong government wanted to dilute the rights of people for the interests of China. That is the reason why many people took onto roads and streets to protest against these laws, these threatening laws. In 2014, over 1 lakh city residents took part in the Umbrella Revolution, which is famously called as Umbrella Revolution just because many protesters used umbrellas to protest against the government. So against Chinese denial of democratic reforms. So despite several demands from Hong Kong people for freedom of speech, freedom of expression and liberty, etc., the Chinese government continues to be authoritative in Hong Kong and it continues to intervene in day-to-day affairs of Hong Kong. That is the reason why as many as 1 lakh Hong Kong citizens, they took up to streets and they protested against Chinese and Hong Kong, pro-Chinese Hong Kong government. And even in 2019, several huge protests happened all throughout Hong Kong for democratic reforms and also against the Chinese intervention into Hong Kong's politics. Very, very important. Right? I hope the relation between Hong Kong and China is pretty clear to you. So this is all about this particular article. Let us look at the next article. Let us look at the next article of our discussion. The title of this article says DRDO carries out test flight of unmanned aerial vehicles. Very, very important article regarding GS paper 3 defense technology related article. So what exactly is in news is the DRDO, the Defense Research Development Organization, it carried out the first ever test flight of a new unmanned aerial vehicle. Unmanned aerial vehicle simply means a drone. Of course, this is very sophisticated, very complex zone that will be used in the defense operations, right? And this unmanned aerial vehicle was actually manufactured by a research laboratory of DRDO, that is Aeronautical Development Establishment, which is based out of Bangalore. Very, very important. So this research laboratory of DRDO, it has designed and developed this particular unmanned aerial vehicle. And this unmanned aerial vehicle is powered by a small turbofan engine. It is equipped with a small turbofan engine and the engine is of Russian origin. Though the design and the other equipment is from India, so it is completely from India, but the engine is actually from Russia. So this particular step can be considered to be a key milestone in terms of providing advanced technologies for the development of future unmanned aerial vehicles. This is the age of drones, right? This is the age of unmanned aerial vehicles. Even several huge militaries, several powerful militaries are counting on this particular unmanned aerial vehicles or drones for their defense operations, right? Even India is trying to achieve self-reliance in the manufacturing of unmanned aerial vehicles. That is the reason why this can be called as a significant key milestone in terms of providing advanced technologies for the development of future drones. So very, very important article. I hope you understood this particular article clearly. Right? Let's move to the next article. The next article of today's discussion is students to be assessed on Desh Bhakti curricula. Very, very important article regarding GS paper 2, education. So this news article says the Delhi government, the government of Delhi has launched a new assessment guidelines. These are the guidelines that guide the assessment procedure in the state, which introduce a major change in the flagship offering of the Delhi government school. As per these government's guidelines, students of class 3rd to class 8th will be assessed for 2 curricula. So there will be inclusion of 2 important subjects, that is happiness and second one is Desh Bhakti. Whereas students of 9th to class 11th, they will be assessed for Desh Bhakti and entrepreneurial mindset, entrepreneurial spirit. So this happiness curriculum aims to build emotional resilience in children in a holistic manner. With the inclusion of this subject, that is happiness, schools will train the children to be happy all the time, whatever the instances is, whatever the situation is. And this Desh Bhakti curriculum seeks to inculcate a sense of love and pride for the country among students. And the teachers will also educate the students about their responsibilities and duties towards the country. So how these children have to act in the future for the upliftment of the country, with the love towards the country. And next, this particular entrepreneurship mindset curriculum is expected to equip students to take charge of their career paths and become job providers instead of job seekers. So this entrepreneurial strip, by advocating this particular entrepreneurial spirit among students, what the government is trying to do simply, it tries to make children as job providers instead of job seekers, right? So this is very, very important article in the exam perspective. So in the mains, you can write these examples, write these cases of Delhi government for better marks, to fetch better marks, right? So this is all about this particular article. Now without any further delay, let us move to the last and final article of today's discussion. Let's discuss it. So the next article of today's discussion is toll in Manipur landslide rises to 21. Very, very important article regarding GS paper 1 geography and GS paper 3 disaster management. Very, very important article. So first let us discuss what is exactly in the news. On day before yesterday, that is on Thursday, there happened a huge landslide in Manipur. So Manipur suffered with a huge landslide on the early hours of Thursday. So because of this landslide or landslip, around 8 people lost their lives by yesterday. But the recent numbers show that the toll in Manipur landslide rises to 21. Around 21 people lost their lives, unfortunately, because of this natural calamity, that is landslide or landslip. So having said that, let us try to understand what exactly is this landslide and how they occur and what are the implications of these what are the impacts and implications of these landslides and different government initiatives to counter or to check the number of landslides. Let us get to our discussion now. These landslides actually occur when there is a movement of mass of rock or debris or earth down a slope. When a mass of rock or debris, that means wastage or earthly material, when it moves down a slope unconventionally, then it is actually called a landslide. And this term landslide, it encompasses many modes of slope movements. Example, falls, topples, slides, spreads, flows. We use these terms interchangeably while describing the phenomenon called landslide or landslip. Now, what were the causes of these landslides? Most predominantly, there were 3 important causes for these landslips to occur. Those are, one is geological, second one is morphological, and third one is anthropogenic. The first one is geological. Just by looking at this word, we can simply understand this phenomena. When the geological structures like rocks or the soil, if they weaken or if they lose power to hold a particular landmass, then it will erode or moves down a slope substantially. That is what geological cause. And the second one is morphological cause. Morphological, it simply relates to the structure of the land. If there is a substantial change in the structure of the land, then it will also cause a mass of rock or debris or earth to move down a slope. When these slopes, if they lose vegetation to fire, if they lose trees, flora to fire or drought, they are more vulnerable to landslides, because the better the vegetation is, that can better hold the soil, that can better hold or restrict the movement of these rocks. But when there is an absence of this vegetation, when there is an absence of this flora, then what happens? It is most likely for the mass of rock or debris or earth to move down a slope. That is what morphological causes. And the third one is anthropogenic causes. That means man-made causes. Illegal construction and development activities, they also cause landslides and landslips more frequently. And now let us look at what are important landslide prone areas in India. The entire Himalayan tract, the entire region of Himalayas and sub-Himalayan terrains of Northeast Asia and Western Ghats and the Nilgiris in Tamil Nadu, especially the hilly tracts of Indian subcontinent, they are more vulnerable to these landslides or landslips. So these are some important landslide prone areas. If we talk about the mitigation or control of these landslides, how we can mitigate or control the frequency of these landslides, the number of landslips, and how can we mitigate the impacts of landslides? Let us look at this. The first one is restriction on the construction and other developmental activities. By restricting some illegal construction activities and other developmental activities, we can actually control the number of landslides, limiting agriculture to valleys. By refraining from the practice of agriculture in mountainous regions, by restricting agricultural activities only to valleys, we can actually limit these landslides, because the agricultural activities in the mountainous regions, the developmental and construction activities in the mountain regions, they are most likely to cause severe landslides and landslips. And the third one is control on the development of large settlements. With the rapid urbanization in India, especially in the mountainous regions, since the tourism sector is booming in the country, many five-star hotels, many resorts are appearing in this particular tourist areas. So these illegal construction activities are actually paving the way for the occurrence of multiple landslides and landslips. And the next point, promoting large-scale afforestation programs. I already told you, deforestation and the lack of vegetation on the slopes, they actually causes many landslides and landslips, because the earth or the land loses its withholding capacity of soil or rocks in the absence of flora or thick vegetation. So by promoting afforestation programs, we can easily mitigate these landslides and landslips. And the next one is encouragement of terrace farming. I believe you all know this. In the mountainous regions, people tend to follow a traditional way of farming, that is jhum cultivation or shifting cultivation, wherein they actually get to a place and they clear the place, they clear all the trees and all the vegetation there, and after that they set fire to these trees and they leave those trees to be burnt completely, and they use the ashes of those trees as a fertilizer to the forthcoming future crops. What they do, after clearing all the trees, they actually plant seeds or they actually plant different crops there. So because of this particular type of cultivation, this particular practice of cultivation, what's actually happening? It causes a huge loss to the vegetation and tree wealth. So if there is no vegetation, if the land lacks tree wealth, what happens? The deforestation directly affects the number of landslides or landslips. If there are less number of trees in a particular area, that area will be more prone to these landslides or landslips that we have discussed already. So what is the solution here? In place of this jhum or shifting cultivation, the farming community from mountainous regions, they have to follow terrace farming technique, which largely helps in mitigating these landslides or landslips. Now let us look at the impacts of landslides and landslips. When a landslide or landslip occurs, there will be a huge loss of man and material in that particular area. There will be huge loss of lives and also public properties. And the second impact is it largely impacts livelihoods. The livelihoods of people will severely be affected with these landslides or landslopes. And third one, further erosion of soil. With the fast moving of a quick mass of land or rock, the soil in and around that particular place will also tend to move down the slope, right? So these are some impacts of landslides or landslips. Now let us go to the next slide. Let us look at the steps taken by Government of India so far. The Geological Survey of India, which is a nodal agency to study geological aspects and variations in Indian subcontinent. So it has done a nationwide landslide susceptibility mapping for 85% of the entire 4,20,000 square kilometers. Throughout the entire length and breadth of our nation, around 4,200 square kilometers of area was prone to these landslides, and Geological Survey of India was succeeded in mapping around 85% of this entire landslide prone area in the country. And the second important aspect was the areas have been divided into different zones. So the entire landslide prone area was divided into different zones according to the propensity of the disaster. Depending on how likely a landslide can happen in a particular place, Geological Survey of India divided the entire landslide prone area in India into different zones. And third one, improvement in the early warning systems. By ensuring and strengthening and boosting early warning systems, and by incorporating modern science and technological advancements in the field of disaster management, we can actually mitigate these landslides, land slopes, etc. Right? So this is all about this particular article. I hope you understood this particular article in great detail. And this is all about today's The Hindu analysis. All the very best aspirants for your preparation. Work hard, stay focused. I'm pretty sure you will reach your targets. Thank you so much. Bye.